I find that the Buteyko method gives me a resource to monitor and look after my health to a far greater extent than I would have believed possible. Now, unless I were to sustain a broken limb or catch some dreadful infection, I would be reluctant to go to the doctor. I prefer to consult a Buteyko practitioner because the science that Professor Buteyko elucidates gives one a handle on one's health to the extent that one can alter one's breathing pattern to breathe more shallowly and thus accommodate a higher level of CO2, which is vital to the smooth and optimum functioning of one's organism. Now, I'm not a scientist and I can't talk science, but I was amazed to discover that there is in the medical textbooks a norm for breathing. Most of us on the planet exceed this norm 2 or 3 times over. And this is very deleterious to our health. Now, no doctor has ever asked me whether I'm over-breathing. They check other norms, such as one's blood pressure and body temperature and pulse, but they don't check the breathing norm. And I find this rather extraordinary. I suppose a doctor might ask one if one was short of breath, but I've never been asked if I was breathing too much, let alone through the mouth. As we get older, even after the age of 30, when our immune systems begin to decline, we are a prey to chronic disease. And the discoveries of Professor Buteyko are highly relevant. And it astonishes me that the National Health Service in Britain doesn't take the matter of our breathing more seriously. It is the one thing we do most of, and without which we'd be dead. We do it 20 or 30,000 times a day. Now, surely we should accept the possibility that it can go wrong. If we accept the possibility that everything else can go wrong, why not breathing? It just seems a no-brainer. Professor Buteyko points out how it goes wrong and what we can do to put it right. And I would recommend anyone to study his findings very carefully. He was a great man. I first came upon the Buteyko method at a talk in 2011. And I was told that if I took nothing away from the talk except that one should only breathe through one's nose, in and out, nasal breathing only, never through the mouth, that would be a step in the right direction. And in the light of what else I heard of the talk, I took this on board straight away and made breathing a central point in my life. And I was amazed at trying to nasal breathe only, how one notices one's breathing does deepen considerably many times during the day. And it's usually when one wants something. I think we're all essentially greedy, not in a gargantuan way, but in lots of little ways. This causes one's breathing to deepen. It's as though there's a sort of, within one, a turmoil of unfocused desire to which the breathing reacts like an alcoholic in a booze shop. I mean, it's absolutely disastrous. When it comes to eating, we all want to eat, even when we're not hungry. It's some sort of benighted Pavlovian response to shove something in, and we don't even pause between mouthfuls. It's an involuntary action, which is the antithesis of genuine appetite. I'll sometimes be downstairs preparing a snack to take upstairs, and then I will eat the snack on the stairs going up. So when I get upstairs, I haven't got a snack to eat, so I have to go downstairs and make another snack. And it's like some vision of hell by Hieronymus Bosch. But anyhow, although I had taken breathing into the center of my life after this talk and was trying hard to breathe only through the nose, I had not actually taken any steps to learn the Buteyko Method, which I thought, well, I'll try this nasal breathing, but I don't think I need to do the method. I don't need to do a workshop to find out how one can alter the pattern of one's breathing and breathe more shallowly. Until about 3 months later, I had a health scare. And then it was a question of any port in a storm. And I thought I must learn what this method is all about. And I had some lessons. And during those lessons, I heard that my health scare was, in fact, based on a wrong diagnosis, and I was in the clear. So I was really learning the Buteyko Method for reasons of optimal health, which, of course, is the best way to do it. Why wait for some chronic disease to afflict one, which it surely will if one's breathing is all to cock, which most of our breathing is. So it is really beneficial to learn the breath-holding exercises, the basics of the Buteyko Method, which enable one to breathe more shallowly. It's not easy, and it's very irksome to do, but I have benefited. My energy levels have increased, and now when I exercise, I will never exercise beyond the point where I can control my breathing, and I only exercise with my mouth shut. And at the end of the period of exercise, I find myself energized rather than exhausted. And this is very empowering. And my weight, I've gone from a 34 waist back to a 32 waist, not by going on some fancy diet or exercise regime, simply by altering even slightly my breathing pattern, which has changed the physiology of my body. So I am thinner, I have no love handles, I'm lean, and I think relatively fit for my 68 years. I no longer take any medication. I didn't have a flu jab last year or the year before. And I know that Professor Buteyko is not against medication, but he's against over-medication. When one is in pain or ill or under the weather, it is difficult to apply the method. That is the time when one should apply some of the breath-holding exercises that one has learned. I fell off a low ladder a while ago onto some stones, and I could feel this bruise rising on my backside to the size of a brick. And I staggered to my feet, and I did immediately 1 or 2 rescue pauses, as they are known, and you will learn about these if you do the method. And the pain was alleviated straight away to the extent that I could go back up the ladder and complete the job. When I get cramp, I will do a breath hold, which will dissipate the cramp. And I'm just getting into the way of using the method as a resource to help my health. You know, the last thing I want to do is run off to the doctor. It is difficult talking about the Buteyko Method to people. They may express an interest, but they don't think it relates to them. Now, this is completely and utterly understandable. If someone comes up to me and says, I've got this fantastic diet or this fantastic exercise regime, and you should try it, one may be interested in hearing about it, but one doesn't think it applies to oneself. And if it's a diet or something like that, it may not be relevant to oneself. But anything to do with breathing is absolutely relevant to the other person. And this is what one has to try to get across. And it's very difficult to do. I think I must be blessed or just plain lucky that I've come upon the Buteyko Method. That wonderful statement by the Chinese philosopher Lao Tzu, the perfect man breathes as if he is not breathing. One of my nieces recently gave birth to a boy, and there was the perfect man, lying there, smiling, relaxed, and the breathing was imperceptible. I couldn't see that the baby was breathing. And down the road, the old people's home, everyone is gasping for breath. Not because one is short of oxygen, but because one is so low in CO2, one cannot get the oxygen off the hemoglobin into the cells and tissues. That's the problem, getting the oxygen into the cells and tissues. Otherwise, the oxygen just whistles around the body to no avail, like one might be stuck on the M25 all day. And even now, with children, I have noticed over-breathing. There was a child on the radio the other day. She was 6 or 7 years old. She had a husky voice, and you could hear her breathiness, and it was like she was 50. It was really depressing to listen to her speaking. So I would say, in conclusion, particularly to all you joggers out there who are running around exercising, which of course is very good because you're making CO2, but because your mouths are hanging open, you're wasting the CO2 you're making, and which you need to get the oxygen into your cells and tissues. And I would say to cyclists too, who go zooming by with their mouths hanging open, I would say, to parody a very famous statement, do not ask for whom the method calls. It calls for you. There are free webinars several times a week, details of which can be found on this website.